Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from anthonymorganti.com, and this is episode 110 of Photo Critiques. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard I'm no longer accepting images for critique. If you're interested in why I came to that decision, in the description of this video there'll be a link. Click on that and it'll bring you to my website where I wrote a small blog post where I write about why I'm no longer going to be doing critiques and what I'm going to be doing instead of critiques. Now, with that said, I still have a lot of critiques to do, so I'll be doing them through February, maybe even a little longer. So I'm going to do all the critiques that I have in the queue, and when I'm done, I'm done. And then I'll be doing my new thing, which you could read about when you click that link. Now, in this episode 110, I'm critiquing the work of Jon Alexiou. I hope I pronounced that right, John. I'm pretty sure I got John right. John sent me in some really nice images, and this first one's one of my favorites. I really like this one. John calls it the old man fishing, and it's almost a silhouette of the man fishing, and his fishing pole is a nice diagonal going through the scene. This haze mutes the colors and it makes the fisherman more of a silhouette, aids to that that effect. So it's very well done. I like the composition, I like everything about it. The only tiny suggestion I can make is generally when you have these lines like this fishing pole, we'd like to see them resolve. So it's getting cut off over here. So let's say if the fishing pole ended here and then the fishing line was going off, I think it would be a much stronger shot. So if you could have just backed up just a little bit or tilted your camera, well, back up just a little bit and tilt your camera a little bit to the right, and I think we could have got the end of the fishing pole in the shot. I think it would have been a stronger shot. But as it is, it's a super strong shot. Very well done. Okay, this next shot, I like the exposure and I like the idea you were going for, framing. And this is a very strong composition when you could use like an arch in this case, or a doorway, a window, something to frame something on the other side. But when you do this, you really need a super strong subject over here because you're glorifying it by having this framing done. So you have this archway and you're glorifying whatever's in here. You're telling the viewer, hey, look through this frame, look through what I'm telling you where to look by doing this. So we need something really strong right here. Now in this case we have really a nice garden, but it's not that strong, compelling, interesting image that I would expect to see as we look through this frame. So keep that in mind whenever you're going to frame. If you're inside a house and you're shooting out a window to frame something, or you're shooting out a doorway or in a doorway for that matter, or whatever, you need something really strong and compelling right here. This is a very, very cool image. You had a couple things working against you here. The bird, I think this is a green heron. The bird is very dark, and the bird's body, and the background is very dark. So it's tending to make the bird blend in a little bit. Now the light is a little harsh, so you got some harsh shadows here. Usually when we photograph wildlife, now if you think back, think of those magazines like National Geographic or any of these nature magazines. The wildlife is when you see the photographs, they're never going to be obscured by branches. So this bird here obviously is down here. We have this branch obscuring it, so that kind of ruins the shot. We need the bird totally unobscured to be a really top-notch nature shot. So I know you're kind of, you get what you get. That bird's going to land wherever it wants to land. You can't tell it to land up here. It's going to land wherever it wants to. But that's why nature photographers tend to be very highly paid, the top ones. They do very well. They're very patient. Very patient. They'll be, a bird photographer would be in a bird blind for hours and hours and hours, if not days, to get the perfect shot of the bird in the perfect spot. So, keep that in mind. If you really want to be a nature photographer, anyone, not just John, anyone wants to be a nature photographer, you really have to be patient. You really have to get in your camera in a situation where you're shooting at a scene that will allow the bird to stand out, either by using a very long lens, open aperture and very, very tight focus on the bird, or you're going to have a very high contrast between the body of the bird and the background. Now in this case, it would have been an easier image if the bird was white or yellow or something bright. Then it would have stood out better against the background. The also, of course, I mentioned, you gotta get the unobscured view of the bird. We also have to worry about light. Now in this case, we have some harsh shadows on the bird, so it's kind of, you have to be, if you're not a full-time wildlife photographer, you have to be lucky. You really do. You have to be at the right place at the right time. I like the execution of the image, though it looks like you got the eye in tight focus, which I should add, Jon sent me his pictures through email, so they were all very small and I had to blow them up, and whenever I do that it loses some resolution, so I can't tell if focus is super tight. But remember that, everyone, if you're focusing on anything with eyes, I mention it all the time in the critiques, you want the eye in the, you want to focus on the eye. That has to be the best focus, is the focus point on the eye. So like I said, if you're not really dedicated to wildlife photography, you just really got to be lucky to be at the right place at the right time, and the animal has to land in the right spot or stand in the right spot with the optimum background and nothing in front of it and good light. Now there's another case of framing on this shot, and I think this one's a lot better than the last one. We do have like a stronger subject here, which is this ruined column. So that's very nice. It's still not that ultimately compelling subject that I think you would want right here, but it's much better and much closer to what I'm talking about when you're framing something through a door frame, an archway, a window. Do you want something super, super compelling? Because you're actually telling the viewer, look through here. I'm helping you by framing it. I want you to look here. So remember that. This is the perfect travel shot. I think you did a really nice job. This is we have this receding lines which help lead your eye through the shot into this building back here. Very well done. Very interesting sky. And it's very nice exposure. Light was a tiny bit harsh, but you did a nice job controlling it. You did a real nice job on this shot. This shot's excellent. There's nothing I could say that would make this shot better. You did a great job. I love that she has her hands over her face, shows like her emotions to being photographed, her attitude towards being photographed. It's very well done. The color is magnificent. You used a f-stop of f10, which gets everything pretty much in focus, and it's really, really nice shot. And this one is a very nice shot. Looks like you nailed it. Focus looks fine. Got all the butterfly in the shot. A lot of times when we're just starting out with photography and we're photographing bugs, we tend to cut off like the antenna especially, but sometimes the wings, and you did a real nice job. A nice bokeh in the background. It helps the butterfly stand out because it's similar shading. Optimally you would like the background to be a little lighter in this case because the butterfly is a little darker, but you did a nice job. Very well done. This I consider an art shot, and I think it's really well done. Now there is framing here. It's not as obvious as it was in those previous two shots, but we have this dark panel here and dark panel on here, so it's natural framing, but you have much more compelling things to look at inside of the frame, and it's kind of in a diagonal, and it's helped by this triangle shape right here. So we have the young lady looking at probably a work of art or something over here. We have this here, looks like some type of Egyptian sculpture or something right here. Then we have another woman all bundled up over here, and so it's kind of in a diagonal line. Very well done. Much more what I was talking about, that if you're going to use any type of framing, you need something more compelling in the inside of that frame. And this is kind of framing too. It's receding lines, obviously, or leading line is we have the stairway going down, but we have the walls that are framing something, but there's nothing here to frame. We have the H, it indicates, I think, hospital. It says restaurant, I believe, right here, so I'm not really sure what that is, but either way, we need something more compelling here, and I think if someone was walking down these stairs, that would push it over the top. Now I do get a lot of I don't even want to say criticisms, disagreements, typical healthy disagreement with me when I talk about in landscape shots, many times you should have a person in the shot. I'm not saying you should all the time, but I'm saying a lot of the time, if you add a person to the shot, it will take that shot and push it over the top. Now, I think in this case, if a person were in this shot, I think it would be much more compelling of an image. This shot here, I like old cemeteries. They intrigue me, and this is very interesting. The trouble is, it's very busy. We have all the different tombstones, and I mean, we could look at this one, then look at this one, then look over here, then look at these. So what you have to do as a photographer when you're presented with a scene like this, you have to pick one star of the show, or maybe two, maybe three, but if they're two or three, they have to be really close together. So in this case, one star of the show, and you have to feature it. You could still hopefully get the flavor of the scene still by having all this other background stuff in there in a way. But what you want to do is you want to use either framing, like we talked about many times, a leading line, some maybe artful composition using the rule of thirds, something where you're making one of these be the subject that you want the viewer to focus on, to let their eyes end up to lay on. So it comes back to what I always say, work the scene. And I think that this is a super intriguing scene. It's difficult to photograph though because it's so busy. So you're going to have to try to find something in the scene that helps the viewer settle on something to look at, so instead of jumping all around looking at all the different things that are in the scene. This is an excellent shot. The couple things, you have this receding lines going through the shot which help lead your eyes through the shot, and it's very strong receding lines from the way the bricks are on the curb to the tracks to the motion of the train. So you're showing motion and the headlights. So it's a really nice shot, very nice exposure. It was a 3-second exposure at f of 18, ISO 400. The only thing, again, I think it would be a stronger image if with a human being was in the shot. Now it's a 3-second exposure, so you could go one of two ways. You could have a friend lean up against the post and tell them to be very still for 5 seconds while this 3-second exposure goes off. And then, you have something for the eyes to land on. Somewhere over in here. It doesn't have to be, right smack dab in the middle. Somewhere over here. Or you could go in a different direction. You could have maybe a person or two moving through the scene relatively quickly so they're blurred walking through the scene. And I think it would add to the shot considerably if you had a person in this scene. It's an excellent shot, don't get me wrong. It's an excellent shot as it is. And I would strongly suggest, if you were ever here again, you take this exact same shot, just like this, but then take a second shot with a person in it. And then see which one you like better and see which one other people like better. And I think you'll find that the shots that have people in them now and then are more intriguing and more compelling. This is kind of a typical travel shot. We're in this beautiful, church, and we have all these beautiful colors and tapestries and beautiful stained glass windows. These shots, I don't often tell people to spray and pray, pun not intended. But in cases like this, sometimes you have to take a lot of shots. What I would suggest you do though is you don't just spray and pray. You don't just aim your camera all over the place and take dozens of shots. You do take a lot of shots though. What I would say is you pick one thing that you want to be the star of the show. Let's say it's Jesus on the cross. So you have that as your star attraction. Do all your artistic photographic techniques to exploit Jesus on the cross in your photograph. So leading lines, framing, whatever you got to do to different angles, different way the light will fall upon the sculpture, whatever you got to do to get that to be the star of the show, but yet maybe still show a little more of the surroundings. Once you're done with that, pick something else, perhaps the stained glass windows. Then do whatever you could do to get that to be the star of the show. Again, framing, leading lines, whatever, different angles, different way the light will fall on certain of the windows, HDR maybe, whatever you got to do to make that. Then pick other things, perhaps these candle holders and the candles, do something with that. So in a scene like this that is so busy, and it is really a travel shot, you're here, you want to record the beauty of this area, this building. Take a lot of shots, but take them with two things in mind. Pick something to be the star of the show, something to be the subject, and then use your photographic techniques that you learn to exploit that subject. Then move on to the next thing that is intriguing in this shot and go from there. And maybe there'll be 3 things, maybe there'll be 10 things, and you'll be taking pictures for a while. But once you get in the habit of doing that, you'll find you'll go very quickly. You'll take shots very quickly, and you won't be burdensome to your travel partners or to other people, other tourists that are there. You could be very quick and unobtrusive and do what you need to do to record the scene. This shot is excellent. This is actually probably my second favorite shot of all your shots. I like the fisherman, just to clarify if you're wondering which one I like the best. I like the first one the best, the fisherman. This one, I like exactly what you're doing. Again, we have framing and we have a subject now. We have this young, or I'm going to say young man, I don't know, it could be an old man for all I know, but we have a person here. And I like that. I like what you did here. The only thing I could suggest is this is a little bit too close to the middle of the frame. And I think it would be a stronger image if you had it more towards the lower right of the frame. Something like that, I think, is a much stronger image. Much more compelling. We have this negative space up here. We got some glare up here, which kind of spoils it a little bit. But if you were so inclined, you could clone that out with Photoshop. Even with Lightroom, you could get rid of that. And we could have this uniform darkness that is kind of gradually getting brighter. And it would help, make the image more uniform and help lead the eye through the shot. But I think this composition is stronger than with this more towards the middle. So I don't suggest that people rely on cropping and post to get these types of shots. I would hope that you could compose it in camera and get it, at the scene right then. And I think it would be a much stronger image, so keep that in mind. And I think that's the last image for John. Yes, it is. So thank you, John, for sharing your images with us. I really do appreciate it. I'd like to thank everyone that watches all my videos. I really do appreciate that. And if you haven't already, if you could go over to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Anthony Morganti. I'd really appreciate that. That's it for now. I'll talk to you guys soon.